The knife clattered the floor as rough hands yanked Zara Williams backward into the darkness. She screamed, but a gloved hand clamped over her mouth, muffling the sound. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she was dragged through the back door of her restaurant into a waiting black SUV. "Don't fight it." A voice growled in her ear. "Boss wants to see you." Welcome to African Korean Story Hub Besties. Kindly show encouragement by hitting the like and subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me. The vehicle screeched away from Fusion Soul, her dream restaurant that was barely hanging on by a thread. Zara's mind raced. Was this about the money? The loan she'd taken from that shark 6 months ago when she was desperate to keep the doors open? She'd known it was dangerous, but she'd been out of options. The drive felt endless. When the SUV finally stopped, she was hauled out and pushed into a gleaming elevator. Her legs trembled as they ascended what felt like dozens of floors. The doors opened to reveal a penthouse that looked like something out of a luxury magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Manhattan skyline, and every surface gleamed with wealth. But Zara wasn't admiring the view. Her eyes locked on the man sitting at the dining table, perfectly still, watching her with an expression that gave nothing away. He was devastatingly handsome, probably in his early 30s, with sharp features and eyes so dark they looked black. His tailored suit probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Sit," he said, his voice smooth and cold as ice. The guards shoved her into the chair across from him. That's when she noticed the plate between them. Beef Wellington. Perfectly golden pastry. The aroma still wafting up. "Who are you?" Zara demanded, trying to keep her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. "Why did you kidnap me?" The man tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a specimen under glass. "My name is Kong Jaiwan, and you're here because you owe a debt to someone who owes a debt to me. I'm paying it back," Zara said quickly. "I just need more time." "I don't want your money, Ms. Williams." Jaiwan picked up a knife and fork, cutting into the beef Wellington with precise movements. "I want your talent." Zara blinked, confused. "What?" "You're a chef. A good one, from what I understand. Southern and Korean fusion cuisine." He took a bite, chewed slowly, and his lip curled slightly. "This is adequate at best. You can do better." "I don't understand what's happening right now," Zara said, her voice rising. "You kidnapped me to critique someone else's cooking?" Jaiwan set down his utensils and leaned back in his chair, fixing her with that unsettling stare. "Here's your situation, Ms. Williams. Your restaurant will be seized in 48 hours due to unpaid debts. Your suppliers have cut you off. Your sous chef is looking for another job. You're drowning, and you know it." Each word hit like a physical blow, because every single one was true. Zara's hands clenched into fists on her lap. "How do you know all that? It's my business to know things." Jaiwan stood, walking to the window with his hands in his pockets. "I'm offering you a deal. Cook for me. 3 meals a day. 1 month. In exchange, I'll clear your debts and save your restaurant." For a moment, hope flared in Zara's chest. Then reality crashed back in. "What's the catch?" Jaiwan turned to face her, and something flickered in those cold eyes. "You live here. You won't leave this penthouse for 30 days. You'll cook only for me. No one else." "That's kidnapping," Zara said flatly. "That's employment with mandatory attendance." Jaiwan corrected. "You're free to refuse, of course. But if you walk out that door, your restaurant closes tomorrow, and the people you borrow from won't be as patient as I am." Zara felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back furiously. She'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much to lose Fusion Soul now. It was all she had left of her grandmother, who'd taught her to cook in a tiny kitchen in Georgia, mixing Southern comfort food with the Korean recipes she'd learned from a neighbor. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why do you need a personal chef?" Something passed across Jaiwan's face, too quick to identify. "That's not your concern. Do we have a deal or not?" Zara looked at the door, then back at him. She was trapped, and they both knew it. "Do I have a choice?" "There's always a choice, Ms. Williams." Jaiwan moved closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne. "But some choices are easier than others." She took a shaky breath. "If I do this, my restaurant is really saved? You'll clear all my debts." "Every penny. You have my word." "The word of a criminal," Zara muttered. Jaiwan's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Careful. I'm a criminal who holds your future in his hands. Zara stood up, meeting his eyes, even though she had to tilt her head back to do it. Fine. 1 month. But I want it in writing. Of course. Jaiwin pulled out his phone and typed something. Within seconds, one of his guards appeared with a contract. Zara read through it quickly. It was legitimate, or at least looked that way. She signed with trembling hands. Excellent. Jaiwin gestured to a guard. Show Ms. Williams to her room and the kitchen. She starts tomorrow morning. Breakfast at 7. As Zara was led away, she glanced back at Jaiwin. He'd returned to the window, staring out at the city like a king surveying his kingdom. She'd just made a deal with the devil. She only hoped she'd survive it. Her room was bigger than her entire apartment, with a king-size bed and an ensuite bathroom that had a tub the size of a small pool. But when she tried the door after the guard left, it was locked from the outside. Prison, no matter how gilded, was still prison. Zara sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the tears fall. What had she gotten herself into? The next morning, she woke to find clothes laid out for her. Chef's whites, perfectly tailored to her size. Someone had been watching her for a while. The thought made her skin crawl. The kitchen was a dream, though, state-of-the-art appliances, every tool she could possibly need, and a pantry stocked with ingredients that made her professional heart sing despite her circumstances. If she had to be trapped somewhere, at least she'd have good equipment. At precisely 7 a.m., Jaiwin entered the dining area. He wore different clothes, but the same cold expression. What would you like for breakfast? Zara asked, proud that her voice didn't shake. Surprise me. Zara turned to the stove, her mind racing. Fine. He wanted to see what she could do. She'd show him. But she wouldn't make it easy or enjoyable. This was still kidnapping, contract or not. She made scrambled eggs. Plain, barely seasoned. Toast that was slightly too dark. Coffee that was lukewarm. She plated it without care and set it in front of him. Jaiwin looked at the plate, then at her. She lifted her chin defiantly. Without a word, he picked up his fork and ate every bite. He maintained eye contact the entire time, and Zara found she couldn't look away. When he finished, he carefully set down his utensils. Interesting choice, he said quietly. Tomorrow, try harder. He left without another word. The next 3 days became a silent war fought across plates of food. Zara made everything deliberately mediocre, bland, uninspired. Oatmeal that was too thick. Sandwiches with stale bread. Soup with no depth of flavor. Each meal was an act of rebellion, a way to maintain some control in a situation where she had none. And every single time, Jaiwin ate everything. He never complained, never commented beyond a simple nod. His patience was infuriating. Zara wanted him angry, wanted some reaction that proved she was getting to him. But he remained as unreadable as stone. On the 4th morning, she found a note beside the fresh ingredients in the kitchen. Your grandmother would be disappointed in you. Zara's hand shook as she crumpled the paper. How dare he bring her grandmother into this? How dare he weaponize a woman who taught her that food was love made visible, that cooking was an act of care and connection. But the words burrowed under her skin because they were true. Grandma Ruth would have been ashamed to see her using her gift as a weapon, deliberately making bad food. She'd always said that cooking without heart was worse than not cooking at all. Zara stood at the counter for a long time, fighting with herself. She hated Jaiwin for kidnapping her, for manipulating her circumstances, for having this power over her life. But she couldn't shake her grandmother's voice in her head, couldn't ignore the chef's instinct that recoiled at deliberately creating bad food. When Jaiwin entered the dining room that evening, the aroma hit him immediately. Zara had made gochujang braised short ribs with collard green kimchi and cornbread panzanella. It was her signature dish, the one that had gotten her restaurant its first good review, the one her grandmother had helped her perfect in those last months before the cancer took her. She set the plate in front of him and stepped back, arms crossed defensively. She hadn't done this for him. She'd done it for herself, for her grandmother's memory. That's what she told herself anyway. Jaiwin looked at the plate for a long moment before picking up his fork. He cut a piece of the short rib, the meat so tender it fell apart at the touch. He took a bite and went completely still. Zara watched his face, trying to read the micro-expressions that flickered across it. He closed his eyes, and for the first time since she'd met him, his carefully controlled mask slipped. She saw something that looked almost like pain. He took another bite, then another. He didn't stop until the plate was clean. When he finally looked up at her, his eyes were different, softer somehow, but also more intense. Who taught you to cook like this? His voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. My grandmother, Zara said, lifting her chin. She raised me after my parents died. Cooking was how we talked, how we connected. She taught me that food should tell a story. Jaiwin set down his fork carefully. What story is this telling? That I'm a chef, Zara said. A real one. And I can't cook badly even when I want to. It's not in me. Something that might have been respect flickered across Jaiwin's face. Your grandmother would be proud. The words hit harder than Zara expected. She felt tears threaten and blinked them back furiously. She would not cry in front of this man. Is that all? No. Jaiwin stood, moving closer. Zara fought the urge to step back. I want to know why you chose those specific flavors. The gochujang and collard greens shouldn't work together, but they do. How? Despite herself, Zara felt a familiar spark of talking about her craft. They're both about heat and fermentation, about taking time to develop deep flavor. Southern food and Korean food have more in common than people think. Both are about comfort, about feeding the people you love, about making do with what you have and turning it into something special. Your restaurant, Jaiwin said. This is what you serve there. When I can afford the ingredients, Zara said bitterly, which lately isn't often. Jaiwin studied her for a long moment. From now on, I'll eat in the kitchen with you, not in here. Zara blinked, surprised. Why? Because watching you cook is more interesting than eating alone. He turned toward the door, then paused. And Ms. Williams? Thank you for the meal. It was the first thing that's tasted like anything in a very long time. He left before Zara could ask what he meant. The next morning, true to his word, Jaiwin appeared in the kitchen instead of the dining room. He sat at the counter while Zara prepared breakfast, and she tried to ignore how aware she was of his presence. He didn't speak, just watched her work with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. She made kimchi fried rice with a fried egg on top, crispy edges and a runny yolk. Simple but perfect. When she slid the bowl in front of him, their fingers brushed briefly. Zara jerked her hand back like she'd been burned. Jaiwin ate slowly, and Zara found herself watching his reactions. The slight widening of his eyes at the first bite. The way his shoulders relaxed marginally. The ghost of something that might have been satisfaction. You're staring, he said without looking up. You're in my kitchen. Zara shot back. I'm allowed to stare in my own space. Your kitchen? Jaiwin raised an eyebrow. I believe this is my penthouse. A kitchen belongs to whoever's cooking in it, Zara said firmly. That's the rule. I wasn't aware there were rules. There are always rules in a kitchen. Zara started cleaning up, needing something to do with her hands. And since I'm the chef, I make them. She heard something that might have been a laugh, though it was so quiet she couldn't be sure. When she glanced over, Jaiwin was almost smiling. Almost. Tell me about your restaurant, he said. Zara hesitated. She didn't want to share personal things with him. Didn't want to give him more ammunition to use against her. But talking about Fusion Soul was like talking about her child. She couldn't help the way her voice softened. It's small, just 40 seats. The neighborhood isn't great, but the rent was what I could afford. I do most of the cooking myself with one sous chef and 2 line cooks. She scrubbed at a pan harder than necessary. We were starting to build a following. Food bloggers were noticing us. We were almost breaking even, and then my equipment started breaking down. The walk-in needed repairs. The stove died. Everything that could go wrong did, and I couldn't keep up with the costs. So you borrowed money from dangerous people, Jaiwin said. I borrowed money from the only people who would lend it to me, Zara corrected. Banks don't give loans to struggling restaurants run by 27-year-old black women with no collateral. Jaiwin was quiet for a moment. Your grandmother left you nothing? She left me her recipes and her cast iron skillet. Zara's throat tightened. That was worth more than money. I understand that more than you might think. Jaiwin's voice was strange, distant. Zara turned to look at him. What does that mean? But his mask was back in place, expression unreadable. Nothing. What's for lunch? Over the following days, a routine developed. Jaiwin appeared for every meal, always in the kitchen. At first, they ate in silence. But gradually, conversation began to happen. Small things at first. Jaiwin asked about ingredients, techniques, flavor combinations. Zara found herself explaining her process, the why behind her choices. She learned that Jaiwin had grown up in Seoul, that he spoke 4 languages, that he read philosophy in his spare time. He never talked about his work, about the criminal empire he apparently controlled. And Zara didn't ask. She told herself she didn't care, that knowing more about him would only make this complicated situation worse. But she couldn't deny that something was shifting between them. The air in the kitchen felt different when he was there, charged somehow. She caught herself wondering what he thought of each dish, found herself putting extra care into the plating even though she told herself it didn't matter. On the 10th day, Zara made the kalbi with a southern twist, adding a bourbon glaze and serving it with mac and cheese infused with gochugaru. It was experimental, risky. She wasn't even sure it would work. Jaiwin took his first bite and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was something raw in his expression, something vulnerable that made Zara's breath catch. "My mother used to make the kalbi," he said quietly, "every Sunday. It was the one meal where my father would actually sit down with us, where we pretend to be a normal family for an hour." Zara sat down across from him without thinking about it, something she'd never done before. Used to. "She died when I was 12. Jaiwin's jaw tightened. Wrong place, wrong time. A rival gang's bullet meant for someone else. "I'm sorry," Zara said, and meant it. She knew that particular pain, the way it carved out a space inside you that never quite filled back in. After she died, food stopped tasting right. Jaiwin looked down at his plate. "Everything was just ash in my mouth. I ate to survive, nothing more. I forgot what it was like to actually taste something, to enjoy a meal. And now," Zara asked softly. Jaiwin's eyes met hers, and the intensity in them made her heart stutter. "Now your food tastes like something. Like memories I thought I'd lost. Like maybe there's still something in this world worth savoring." The moment stretched between them, fragile and dangerous. Zara knew she should look away. She rebuild the walls she'd carefully constructed. But she couldn't. She was caught in his gaze, in this unexpected honesty, in the realization that maybe calling Jaiwin was just as trapped as she was, just in a different kind of prison. "Why did you really bring me here?" she whispered. "It's not just about the food, is it?" Jaiwin was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "I inherited my father's empire when I was 22. I've spent 8 years building it, protecting it, becoming the man everyone fears. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what it felt like to be human, to want something just because it brings joy, not because it serves a purpose." He paused. "Then I heard about a chef who was brave enough or foolish enough to mix Southern soul food with Korean flavors. I was curious. And when I tasted your food, I remembered what it was like to feel something other than anger or emptiness. So you kidnapped me," Zara said, but there was less heat in her voice now. "So I did the only thing I know how to do," Jaiwin corrected. "I took what I wanted. I'm not a good man, Zara. I've done things that would horrify you. I'll do worse things tomorrow. But for 3 meals a day, I get to sit in this kitchen and remember what it was like before I became a monster." Zara's chest felt tight. She should be angry. She was angry, but she was also starting to understand, and that was infinitely more dangerous. "You're not a monster. You don't know that." "Maybe not." Zara reached across the table without thinking, her hand covering his. His skin was warm, and she felt him tense at the contact. But monsters don't mourn their mothers. They don't remember Sunday dinners. They don't close their eyes and savor food like it's a lifeline back to their humanity. Jaiwin stared at their joined hands like he'd forgotten what touch felt like. Slowly, carefully, he turned his hand over and laced his fingers through hers. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them moved. They just sat there, connected by something neither could name. The alarm on Jaiwin's phone shattered the moment. He pulled his hand back, and the walls went back up so fast Zara almost wondered if she'd imagined the vulnerability. He stood, straightening his suit jacket with sharp, precise movements. "I have business to attend to," he said, his voice cold again. "Dinner at 7. He left without looking back, and Zara sat alone in the kitchen, her hand still warm from his touch, her mind spinning. This was bad. This was so incredibly bad. She was starting to see Kong Jaiwin as a person, not just her captor. She was starting to care about the pain in his eyes, the way he savored every bite like it might be his last, the glimpses of the boy who'd lost his mother too young. She was starting to fall, and she had no idea how to stop. That night, Zara made her grandmother's recipe for a Korean-style fried chicken with a honey butter glaze and pickled collard greens. It was comfort food, the kind of meal meant to heal something broken inside. When Jaiwin walked into the kitchen, she had everything plated and ready. But before he could sit down, she heard shouting from somewhere else in the penthouse. Gunshots. Jaiwin's entire body went rigid, his hand moving the gun she'd never realized he carried under his jacket. "Get down," he ordered, his voice sharp a command. But Zara froze, terror locking her muscles. The kitchen door burst open and 3 men in masks rushed in. Zara screamed as one of them grabbed her, yanking her back against his chest. She felt cold metal pressed against her temple. "Let her go," Jaiwin said, and his voice was colder than Zara had ever heard it. This was a MAFIA boss, the man everyone feared. She's nobody. She means nothing. The words shouldn't have hurt. They were trying to protect her. Zara knew that logically, but they still felt like a knife between her ribs. "That's not what our intel says," the man holding her said. "Word is the infamous Kong Jaiwin has a new weakness. A pretty little chef he keeps locked up here." "Your intel is wrong," Jaiwin said flatly. "She's an employee, nothing more." "Then you won't mind if we take her." Jaiwin's gun was out in a flash, aimed at the man's head. "Touch her and you die. All of you, right here." Interesting reaction for someone who means nothing. The man laughed. Everything happened at once. Jaiwin fired. The man holding Zara shoved her forward. She hit the kitchen island hard, pain exploding through her ribs. More gunshots. Shouting. The smell of gunpowder. Then strong arms wrapped around her, and Jaiwin was pulling her down, covering her body with his own as bullets flew over their heads. Zara could feel his heart pounding against her back. Could hear him speaking rapidly in Korean into his phone. His body was a shield between her and the danger, and she realized with crystal clarity that he'd die before he let anyone hurt her. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it started. Jaiwin's guards had taken out the intruders. But Jaiwin didn't move, didn't release her. His arms stayed locked around her, his face buried against her neck. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough, desperate. "Zara, answer me. Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," she managed, even though she was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "I'm okay." Jaiwin pulled back just enough to look at her, his hands cupping her face, his eyes wild with something that looked like fear. "You're bleeding." Zara touched her forehead, and her fingers came away red. She must have cut it when she hit the counter. "It's just a scratch." "Just a scratch," Jaiwin repeated, his voice shaking with barely controlled fury. But the anger wasn't directed at her. His thumb brushed gently across her cheekbone, wiping away a smear of blood. "I almost lost you. Do you understand that? They almost took you from me." "You said I was nobody," Zara whispered. "You said I meant nothing." Jaiwin's eyes closed briefly, pain flickering across his face. "I lied. I lied because if they knew the truth, they'd never stop coming for you. But I'm done pretending." He opened his eyes, and the raw emotion there stole Zara's breath. "You're not nobody. You're everything. You're the first person in 8 years who's made me feel human again. The first thing I look forward to every day. The reason I wake up thinking maybe this life isn't completely empty." "Jaiwin," Zara breathed, her hands coming up to cover his where they still cradled her face. "I know I have no right," he continued, words spilling out like he couldn't stop them. "I kidnapped you. I'm holding you prisoner. I'm a criminal who's done terrible things. But Zara, you become the most important thing in my world, and I don't know how to let you go." Zara should have been angry, should have used his confession against him, should have demanded her freedom. But looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability and fear and desperate hope there, she couldn't deny what had been growing between them these past weeks. Couldn't deny that she'd started counting the minutes until meals, that his rare smiles had become more valuable than anything else, that somewhere along the way her prison had started feeling like the only place she wanted to be. "Then don't," she said softly. "Don't let me go." Jaiwin sucked in a sharp breath. "You don't know what you're saying." "I do." Zara moved closer, eliminating the space between them. "I should hate you. I should want to run as far from you as possible. But Jaiwin, you're not the only one who's been feeling something. You're not the only one who's been changed by these weeks together. This is dangerous, Jaiwin said, but his hands tightened on her face. Being close to me will put a target on your back. You saw what just happened. I'm already close to you, Zara pointed out. I've been close to you since the day you brought me here. The only difference is whether we're honest about it or keep pretending. Jaiwin searched her face like he was looking for any sign of doubt or fear. If we do this, there's no going back. You'll be mine, and I'll be yours, and the whole world will know it. That makes you vulnerable. Then protect me, Zara said simply. Isn't that what you just did? Something broke in Jaiwin's carefully controlled expression. He pulled her against him and kissed her like he was drowning, and she was air. Zara kissed him back with equal desperation, pouring weeks of tension and confusion and unexpected feeling into it. His hands moved her waist, pulling her closer. Her fingers tangled in his hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jaiwin rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you. Probably not, Zara agreed and felt him huff a laugh against her lips. But I don't care. They stayed like that for a long moment, wrapped around each other on the kitchen floor, surrounded by broken glass and a dinner that had been forgotten in the chaos. Finally, Jaiwin pulled back and stood, offering her his hand. Zara took it and let him help her up. Let me clean that cut, he said, his voice still rough with emotion. In the bathroom, Jaiwin tended her forehead with surprising gentleness. His hands were steady as he cleaned the wound and applied a small bandage. But Zara could see the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes kept darting back to the cut like it physically pained him to see her hurt. I'm okay, she said again. You almost weren't. Jaiwin finished with a bandage, but didn't step back. They knew about you, Zara. My enemies are already watching. They'll use you to get to me. So what do we do? Jaiwin was quiet for a moment. I triple your security. You stay here where I know you're safe. And I eliminate anyone who even thinks about threatening you. That's your solution? More prison and more violence. That's the only solution I have, Jaiwin said harshly. This is my world. Zara, this is who I am. Blood and violence and constant vigilance. If you're with me, you're part of that whether you want to be or not. Zara grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer. Then I'm part of it. I'm not running away from this. From you. But Jaiwin, you need to understand something. I won't be kept in a cage, even a golden one. If we're doing this, if we're really together, then I need to be your partner, not your possession. Jaiwin stared at her for a long moment, and she could see the war happening behind his eyes. The instinct to control everything, to keep her locked away where nothing could touch her, fighting against the recognition that doing so would destroy whatever was growing between them. I don't know how to do that, he admitted quietly. I don't know how to care about someone without trying to control every variable, eliminate every threat. Then learn, Zara said. We'll figure it out together. But I won't be a bird in a cage, even for you. Jaiwin pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. The month is almost over. Your contract is almost up. I was supposed to let you go. Do you want to let me go? No. The word was torn from somewhere deep inside him. But I should, for your safety, for your freedom, I should put you on a plane tomorrow and make sure you never come near me again. Zara pulled back enough to look at him. What if I don't want that? What if I choose to stay? Why would you choose this? Jaiwin demanded. Choose me? I'm a criminal. Zara, I've killed people. I'll kill more. The blood on my hands will never wash clean. Because underneath all that blood and violence, I see someone who loves his mother's cooking, Zara said. Someone who reads poetry when he thinks no one's watching. Someone who hasn't felt human in 8 years, until some stubborn chef made him remember what it's like to taste real food. Someone who put his body between me and bullets without a second thought. That's not enough to build a life on, Jaiwin said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe not, Zara agreed, but it's a start, and maybe together we can build something better. Maybe I can remind you what it's like to be human, and you can show me what it's like to be brave enough to choose something dangerous and beautiful and absolutely insane. Jaiwin kissed her again, softer this time but no less intense. When he pulled back, there was something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Hope, maybe, or possibility. Stay, he said. Not as my prisoner. Not because of a contract, but because you want to. Stay and let me spend every day proving that I'm worth the risk you're taking. Only if you promise to eat every meal I make and tell me honestly if you like it. Zara said. Deal. Jaiwin's lips curved into a real smile, the first one she'd ever seen from him, and it transformed his face. Though I should warn you, I'm going to like everything. Your cooking is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Even better than your criminal empire. Infinitely better, Jaiwin said seriously. Money and power are empty, but your food, the way you pour your heart into every dish, the stories you tell through flavors, that's real. That matters. You matter. Zara felt tears prick her eyes. I need to call my sous chef. Let her know I'm okay, that the restaurant is going to be fine. Already done, Jaiwin said. I had my people clear all your debts yesterday. The restaurant is yours again, free and clear. Your equipment has been replaced. Your staff has been paid their back wages. Yesterday? But that was before I admitted how I felt. Jaiwin finished. I know. I was always going to keep my promise. Zara, whether you stayed or left, whether you felt anything from me or not, I was going to make sure you had your dream back. You earned that with every meal you cooked, every moment of beauty you brought into my life. You're making it really hard not to fall completely in love with you, Zara said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Jaiwin's eyes widened. Then that smile came back, bigger this time. Good. Because I've been falling since the first time you made me gochujang short ribs, and I remember what it felt like to taste happiness. 6 months later, Zara stood in the kitchen of Soul and Soul, the new restaurant she and Jaiwin had opened together. It was bigger than Fusion Soul, in a better neighborhood, with a full staff and a waiting list for reservations that stretched for months. The concept was simple. Southern Korean fusion cuisine that honored both traditions while creating something entirely new. Jaiwin came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist as she stirred a pot of kimchi collard greens. This had become their routine. During the day, he ran his business, doing whatever his crime bosses did. She pretended not to ask too many questions, though she knew he was trying to move into more legitimate ventures. At night, they came here together. She cooked. He tasted. They built something beautiful in the midst of his dark world. How's the dinner service looking? He asked, pressing a kiss to her neck. Packed as usual. Zara leaned back against him. Though I still think it's unfair that you use your terrifying reputation to get us good reviews. I've never threatened a single food critic, Jaiwin protested. You didn't have to. They're all too scared of you to write anything negative. Then I suppose you'll just have to make sure the food is good enough that they'd write positive reviews anyway. Zara turned in his arms. Are you doubting my cooking? Never. Jaiwin kissed her softly. Your cooking saved my life. Gave me a reason to be something other than a monster. You were never a monster, Zara said, as she said 100 times before. Just someone who'd forgotten how to be anything else. And you reminded me, Jaiwin said, every day, with every meal, you show me that there's still beauty in this world. Still things worth protecting and savoring and fighting for. The kitchen timer went off, and Zara reluctantly pulled away to check on the food. Jaiwin watched her work with the same intensity he'd had from the very beginning, like she was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. I love you, he said suddenly. I don't say enough, but Zara, I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anything. Zara looked up from the stove, her heart full to bursting. I love you too, even though you kidnapped me and held me hostage. Best decision I ever made, Jaiwin said with that smile that was only for her. Worst decision I ever made was agreeing to cook for you, Zara countered. And also the best. They grinned at each other across the kitchen. Two people who found something unexpected and precious in the most unlikely circumstances. A criminal and a chef. Danger and comfort. Darkness and light. Somehow, impossibly, they fit. And if you love the story of how a kidnapped chef and a mafia boss fell in love, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more romantic stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that like button if you're Team Jaiwin and Zara, and comment below telling us what your favorite moment was. Would you have stayed like Zara did? Or would you have run the moment you had the chance? Let us know, and we'll see you in the next story where love finds a way even in the most impossible circumstances.